You're listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast, a Texas Tech athletics podcast where food and sports clash at the goal line. Here are your hosts, Spencer and Michael.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 23 Personnel Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, joined by Michael. Michael, what's up, man?
I'm ready to preview Provo.
Provo preview.
You going to Provo?
No.
You got some connections up there, right? Could you get us a cougar tail?
Oh, those look so good.
They do. The ones with bacon? Is that a normal thing? Or do they have
no. Are you kidding me?
Is the bacon just for this
I can't hear you, Michael.
Game?
Hold your horses.
Okay. Are you there?
I'm here.
He's back.
I'm back. All right. That's always fun. I don't know what you were talking about because I couldn't hear you, but we were just starting to talk about the cougar tails.
Yeah, that was pretty much still what I was talking about. Just trying to figure out if the bacon was a new thing they were doing just for homecoming, or if that's what they always do. And is it like a maple icing?
It looked that way.
For those of you who don't know, cougar tail is basically kind of like an eclair looking donut. Am I saying it right? Is that even right? Is it a donut?
That's what it looked like to me. It looked like a long donut with like a maple glaze color icing, glaze, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
With bacon bits on it, but not like crumbled bacon, but like actual chunks of bacon on it.
It's okay. It is basically like a donut.
Freaking-tastic.
Yeah. Let's see. It's a 15-inch donut, and they cook like 2
massive.
miles of them. And let's see.
Canceling out my trip to Dallas this weekend. We're going to Provo.
Yeah. It's maple topping. You can pre-order. I mean, these are a big deal, and I completely see why. So for those of you, lucky few going to the game to represent the Red Raiders, I hope you get one. Tell us about it. We need to know.
Do they
where
ship?
Food and sports clash at the goal line.
Need to figure out, do they ship these things? Yeah. So, I mean, before we get to previewing Provo, yeah, I've been to Provo. I spent some time up there. A few Fast and Furious weeks before I shipped off to Germany, but
not to brag though.
No, not to brag. It's weird up there, man. Just say it. even as a member of that church, Utah, especially Salt Lake and Provo, especially Provo, it's weird, dude. It's its own little universe, and it's weird, dude.
I went to Utah for a wedding once.
Oh.
But it was closer to. We flew into Salt Lake City, but the wedding was actually where they had the Winter Olympics back in '92 or whenever that was. It was on top of we rode the ski lift up to the mountain.
Very nice.
It was pretty cool. Beautiful. It was
for
gorgeous.
Sure.
It was like August, I think, and I was wearing a long sleeve shirt all day and felt great.
Yep. It's fantastic. I was up there, let's see. I entered the Missionary Training Center February, left in April. So it was cold when I got there. It was basically done snowing, but there was still snow out there. And by the time that we were heading out, full-fledged spring action going on. It was fantastic. And I'd been up there before. Later in the spring, I did some campus tours trying to figure out where I was potentially looking at transferring out of Texas Tech when I returned, and I did some campus tours. And if I was going to do it, I had my heart set on going to Utah State up in Logan, but obviously I stayed at Texas Tech. So there you go. We're, like I said, before we get into previewing BYU, I want to go over Kansas State again because I spent some time. I'm not sure why I did this to myself. I watched the majority of the game because I didn't get a chance to watch it on Saturday night. So I watched it and I had some thoughts. Michael, you rewatched part of it.
Yes, the third quarter specifically. So
we'll piece all that together. Newsflash, it was worse watching it than I anticipated. And maybe it's because I knew it was going to happen. Or maybe it's because I had already colored my perception of the game because I'd heard post-game comments. I had heard comments made in the Monday morning press conference. And then I was like, what was said does not jive with what I saw. So we'll talk about that. So we'll look back at Kansas State this weekend. We'll look ahead to BYU and the rest of the season, and we'll touch on some basketball. There were some preseason polls, I guess you could call them, that came out. Tell you how unshocked I am that Kansas got away with no penalties following their investigation. And then get you ready for the road trip. I know I've heard of a few of us Red Raiders heading up to Provo. So we'll get you ready for that trip. Michael, you ready to talk about some football?
I think so.
All right. So you lose the game 38-21. Was close there. You even had a lead in the second half. From not watching the game, one of my first questions to Michael and the instant reaction was, "Hey, what happened to Morton?" Because all I'd heard was that he was playing well in the first half, and then didn't come back out in the second half, and nobody really knew or said anything. Watching the game, Morton was not playing well in the first half. And maybe more accurately, Morton was not doing well. Very visibly was he hampered. Combination of, wasn't 100% coming into the game, but when Kansas State was able to take shots on him, they were landing heavy shots on Morton. And I'm not insinuating or implying or even saying that they were dirty, because there weren't any flags on these hits. But when they had an opportunity to hit Morton, they made sure he felt it. I'll put it that way.
And they didn't stop at Morton, because
Nope.
Strong felt some of that too. And
No. Yeah, they got Strong.
That's probably the mentality you want if you're a Kansas State fan. You want your defense to be relentless, but yeah, it's kind of, when you're rewatching something, it kind of hurts even more to see the severity of some of those hits.
But Michael, this again calls into question what the heck our offensive coordinator was looking at when he was calling. Because again, I have the benefit of watching the game, knowing what happened and knowing that Morton does not come and play in the second half. But watching him throw, no, his throwing motion didn't look off. He was missing guys bad. When he was able to step into a throw, the ball was coming out funny. Like one of those stupid plays we ran on the goal line. We had two offensive linemen and two receivers out wide. He steps into that throw. I swear that ball is spinning sideways. Like there was no spiral on it. It was like tumbling sideways through the air. How Xavier White caught it, I'm not sure. Looked like a sideways punt. His shoulder was jacked up, which does not have me hopeful for his return for this weekend. We had heard somewhere that even this week coming into Kansas State, I don't think he threw until Friday, like late in the week, Friday. So Jake Strong did get a lot of practice reps this week. And then to top it off, like he was already they're already trying to limit how much he's doing in practice, and then to get hammered as hard as he was in the game. I don't have expectations that Morton's going to play this weekend. Watching how the game unfolds in the first half makes me even more infuriated that like the game plan was what it was, or it continued to play out the way it did in the second half. That you had a hurt quarterback and you kept forcing it into his hands.
Well, I get that part of you doesn't want to play into that, doesn't want the other team to know necessarily how bad things are, but
that they have eyes too, Michael.
No, I know, and I mean they can see too, because they've seen film on Morton and they know what he's capable of, and they're able to look at that and go, something's not quite right. But the third quarter rewatch for me was, I rewatched the Strong's 3 drives basically, well 4, and I'm softening a little bit on his first drive just because of the the false start and a couple other things that happened that kind of put him behind there. And then even on, the 4th and 2, yes, Kansas State showed 7 in the box, but they didn't rush 7. They parked 4, just like right in the middle of the field after the snap. And then the receivers, those routes were awful. They were not highly successful routes. You had trips left on the far side of the field, so I think you're on the right hash, and on your left, you've got your 3 receivers over there, and they're all running routes that Patrick Mahomes hit. And they're just getting further and further from strong. Everyone's at least 10, 12 yards out when we need 3 yards. And he picks what was probably the best decision was to throw to the right. He was the most open until late. I think it was Aiken on the left. He juked his guy and got open, but I don't think that would have been a super tough throw to make. But none of these routes, they were all like go routes. 2 of them were go routes. One of them was an out to the opposite sideline across your body. The other one was a drag in the middle. He got tangled up with a defender and fell down. Just slant. Is there a slant
or hitch
that could be run? Yeah, I mean just something, a curl.
Run to the sticks and turn around.
Yeah, I mean, I know those linebackers basically parked in the middle, so that kind of ate that up. But man, none of those were successful routes on a 4th and 3 from your own 30.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my main beef on that drive. Sure, okay, they had 7 in the box. Fine, you don't feel like handing it to Brooks, but let the young quarterback have a freaking throw he can make. Give him a chance, man.
I'm still gonna because I don't know what the play was called from the sideline. I know what play was ran, so I don't know if that was a Jake Strong decision. I don't know how much leeway he has or should have in changing the play as a true freshman getting his first collegiate time. I want to give Kitley the benefit of the doubt and say maybe Jake Strong changed into something there. But also as the head, as the coach, as the offensive coordinator, hey, actually, let's stick with what I call right now, because you're 18 years old. You've never seen this before. And I still I want to call BS on taking what the defense has given you, right? That's the defense that Kitley used on Monday. Because you were presented with some light boxes.
Yes.
And you threw into it.
Yes.
You
on first down, they rushed 3 on 1, that one of those third quarter drives, and just like 1st and 10, man. Let's get some yards. Let's hand it off. There's 3 guys right here. I think you might be able to block them, or at least get a few yards before the linebackers show up. I don't know.
I will also let me also say, when I read the 10 things from Seth on Sunday, and he was talking about how bad the defense was, I hadn't watched the game yet, and I was like, but the offense was terrible. Guys, the defense was terrible too. The same issues we had with the offensive game, nobody was committed to what was in front of you, happening in front of you. What Kansas State was, what they've been known for decades. They did not do anything they haven't done for years. But you tried unsuccessfully tempting them to do something else. It's it's not going to work. Against a box, if you flip it around and look at the offensive formation, Michael, they had 9 offensive players in the box. You know how many defenders you had in that same box? 6. 6. DeRuiter, you know better than this, man. They had a tight end, a fullback. They had DJ Giddens and Avery Johnson, and you try to defend that box with 6. No, the game plan all the way around was a cluster. So
Well,
I was I was heavy-handed on my criticism of the offense on Saturday, watching it and seeing how bad the defense was and how they were not committed to stopping the run. It's like, yeah, you gave up 300 rushing yards because you tried to defend 6 on 9.
Well, and then the opposite happened too on. So when Tech went up 21-7, they forced Kansas State to punt, and then Strong threw an interception pretty quickly, and Avery Johnson it was 3rd and 10. And I wrote some notes about this, but I didn't mention it on the instant reaction, and Kyle covered it really well on the Gambling Gauchos. But I noticed the same thing a lot of y'all did. Here's what I wrote. On 3rd and 10, TTU burned a timeout only to get roasted by Avery Johnson on a 30-yard touchdown run. Kansas State up 24-21. And
where he was untouched.
He was. In Texas Tech, I swear, Spencer, on your definition of the box, 7 or 8 guys. Texas Tech came out of that timeout. They didn't like what they saw. Kansas State went back to the exact same formation. The personnel might have changed slightly. I can't tell for sure if the 2 receivers on the right changed, but the formation was the same. Empty backfield. And I think they had 7 or 8 guys in the box and still just got manhandled out of the way. Do you know who Marcus King is, by the way?
No.
Excellent musician.
Okay.
He and Avery Johnson might be related. They just really look a lot alike. Almost the same hair, too. It's kind of uncanny.
I had a realization this weekend, or sorry, not this weekend, when I was watching the game. Avery Johnson's going to be a handful.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Maybe, but
Kansas State may be so freaking good with him at quarterback.
Maybe Tech won't play Kansas State for a couple of years. That's kind of, this is the world we live in now, Spencer, where we're dodging Manhattan. Let's just, you know what? Let's not play Kansas State. Let's they're the team we kind of like to root for anyway, so let's just not play them. I'm cool with that. Give us a couple of years off to find ourselves.
Yeah,
we'll go backpacking through Appalachia and find ourselves.
Like it's better playing West Virginia these days?
Oh, I don't know. I can't afford Europe. I could afford Appalachia.
All right. That's really all I had. Like it was.
Yeah.
I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you put 6 guys in the box versus 9, you were obviously going to lose that battle. You put 8 or 9 in the box, you still lost. So, I mean, it was just a cluster. It was bad all the way around. Offense, I don't know, man. I saw where Kitley said if you take out the big runs, they're only, we were only running for 3 yards per carry. It was like,
but that's part of the running game. You can't take them.
You're saying, well, if you take out the touchdowns, we didn't score any points. Well, you run the ball, and sometimes you're very successful running the ball, but we can't take credit for when we're successful. We have to look at how bad we are when we're not. Like, dude, you're hamstringing yourself, like, in trying to, like, you're not making the point you think you're making. It's so bad. It's so bad. I got excited seeing how the game went against Houston. Well, sorry, the second half, and then how it went against Baylor. That almost feels like you did that. Like, you knew coming into the game that you were going to beat Baylor and you're going to beat them like a drum. You're like, well, we'll just run the ball because they literally can't do anything else about it. But actually, you're really, really good at running the ball. And when you get into these close games, you're like, wow, we just can't run the ball. Well, you can't throw it either. So
something's got to give somewhere.
Stay committed to what has been working for the majority of the season. When you show a commitment to running the ball, it's paid off. So, all right. Other things I want to get to from Monday's press conference. Health-wise, linebacker Bryce Ramirez and Braylon Lux should be back this weekend. A handful of guys will be day-to-day. Game time decisions. CJ Baskerville may be back. Morton, although I don't really expect him. Cole Spencer, but who was playing in the spot? Jackson.
I think
Jacoby
so.
Jackson.
Yes,
I think did pretty good. I didn't have any like glaring like, oh my gosh, that's a hole that we need to fix. And the Mason Tharp, but with the room you have around Tharp, I mean, like you want him back obviously, but you've got Cup, you've got York, you've got even Teeter showed up this past weekend. So, Jacob Rodriguez getting closer, so I would expect maybe next week we hear about how close he is. So
yeah, maybe he'd be ready for TCU after the bye week.
Yeah. You know what else I heard about how close we are, Michael? How close we are to having an absolute disaster at quarterback. Because Morton has not been practicing. Left the game with an injury, so I would assume even further from being ready to go. So you got Jake Strong. And from all accounts, he's healthy, right? We're glad about that.
Yes.
The reason, and this is very narcissistic and maybe rewriting history here, but the reason you only played 3 quarterbacks last year is because by the time your third guy got hurt, your first guy was ready. Like he was back.
Yes.
Here's the problem. Your first guy's not coming back. Morton, he's not ready to come back. I mean, he's just now leaving. Literally nobody else. Michael, you know who's taking second string quarterback reps this week? Brady freaking Boyd. You know what position he played in high school? Not center? Quarterback. You remember when we talked about guys that maybe could have played quarterback on their high school teams?
Yes.
Maybe this is one of them. Maybe this is one of them because guess what? Did not play quarterback in high school. He was wide receiver at South Lake and a wide receiver and defensive back at Richland High School.
This was one of those, I remember this being a hypothetical, I believe after the Baylor game, or maybe going into the Baylor game, where the coaches said that, and I thought, why would they bring that up? That's just kind of weird.
Well,
it's
we're there.
They had been practicing QB3 all week, and we're like, okay, we gotta have somebody else. He's 6'1", 205, so he's built like a quarterback.
On the smaller side, but it's not a terrible build.
No.
Heaven help us if we get down to playing Brady Boyd at quarterback.
That's what was so frustrating on Saturday, and it had nothing at all to do, even completely beyond play calling, completely beyond performance on the field, just how defeating it is to be half the way through your season and already on QB3, knowing there is no true QB4, and you're fighting to make a bowl game. Just give me a break. All I want before I die is for my favorite college football team to compete for an outright conference championship. Not national, not go winless, not make the playoff.
Playoff?
Playoff? Just I mean, you can't do that when you are on your third quarterback and possibly converting a wide receiver to play quarterback and going on the road. I mean, come on. Universe. This sucks.
Yeah.
But then, hey, might go to Provo. A triumphant, crazy Disney movie thing happens, and Strong comes in, plays great. They call some plays he's comfortable with. They call some routes that he's got a better chance of hitting. Opens up the run game. Can't help but run it.
You know, could really help out
when they're dropping 8. What are you going to do? You got to run the ball. You got to run the ball. You're just throwing it too well. That's what's going to happen.
You know what's going to help Jake Strong out and quarterback? Running the ball with Josh Brooks. Running the ball with Cameron Valdez. Because if BYU's like, we're tired of being gashed up the middle, they're going to start committing guys in the box. You know who throws a great deep ball? Jake Strong. You know what happens if they're committing 8 guys in the box? Those deep shots, they're going to have a higher probability of hitting. It's funny how that works out.
Please. Speak it into existence.
All right, so our pregame.
I really don't have a whole lot else on that.
No, I'm done. I'm done with Kansas State. You got to go 3-2 the rest of the way out. Starting this weekend on the road, but you did get that. You did make some progress there. The last road trip against Baylor. Yes, they may be down, but you still got to win those games. BYU, it's not great, Bob. Another opportunity to notch a road win here. You need it. Your remaining schedule, BYU is the second easiest game left. UCF, and that's assuming McLean is their quarterback, because they are just about as lost as we are on offense if Plumlee isn't playing. And then so it's UCF, BYU, Kansas, the only 3 games left with a greater than 50% here on the probability or the prediction here to win. And with Kansas, it's close. It's 55%. TCU dropped quite a bit from 63% down to 50%. And then Texas getting even further away from in your favor here.
Yeah, Texas had a really good bye week, apparently. Really
Looks
convincing.
that way.
Really convincing bye week.
Really convincing win there. Granted, like you may benefit from a bye week health wise following this BYU game. You may get a healthy Baron Morton back, some time to heal and rest that shoulder, to get you ready for TCU and then UCF. Sorry, TCU, then Kansas, then UCF. But first, you got to go on the road. You got to go to Provo this weekend. Your overall team S&P slipped 7 points. You're down to 33rd. BYU is at 65. Texas Tech still the best team with as many losses as Tech does. Best 4-loss team in the country, baby. 33rd. The game this weekend will be on FS1 at 6 p.m. They are led on the sideline by head coach Kalani Sataki. He's been there a lot longer than I remember him. I remember Bronco Mendenhall. And then when he left for Virginia, did not realize it was 8 years ago now.
Right. I did the same thing when I was checking that out, and I thought, man, I remember Mendenhall. It just seemed like it was a few years ago at best.
Yeah, 8. He is 60-36 as a head coach.
Not too shabby.
Don't know how this worked out, but Texas Tech jumped quite a bit as number 37 best road team, taking on BYU, the 61st best home team. Currently, so far, the Cougars are 3-0 at home, hosting Sam Houston. The narrow victory, 14-0 on winless Sam Houston right now, 0-6. Then they hosted Southern Utah, not an FBS opponent, beat them 41-16. They are also under 500 on the season. Had a miracle victory on the road in Fayetteville, apparently 38-31. But I say miracle. Arkansas is on quite a bender here. They've lost their last 5.
Yeah, that was the start of their skid. They were 2-0, and then they have gone 0-5. BYU broke them. They broke the Razorbacks.
Yeah. Then they went from Arkansas to Kansas, lost that one by 11. Kansas is 5-2. Through that game, they had 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick 6, and they lost a scoop and score, a fumble. Bounced back with a win at home versus Cincinnati. So their home wins are Sam Houston, Southern Utah, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's also struggling this season. They're 2-4. They were off following Cincinnati, then lost on the road at TCU. Michael, you found out that their wins, BYU's wins this season, are against teams that are combined 6-19.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Not the best. So the 4-2 record is a little deceiving at this time of year.
Yeah, they have a better record than they would seem to be. But that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not a good 4-win team. Whereas Texas Tech, I think, is better than a 4-loss team, but maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not with the team that's going to be fielded on Saturday.
The Tech defense fell 15 spots to 35, taking on the number 62 offense. They are led by Keaton Slovis, USC Pittsburgh transfer. This is a senior, 6'3", 215. Only attempted 119 passes on the season, and not great. Under 57% completion.
Yeah, that first number is obviously wrong that I wrote. But
oh no, you're fine.
I don't know what I did.
14, just under 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's not a runner. He's bad. He's 23 carries on the season, the net of minus 42 yards, and 3 more touchdowns. So, when they do run the ball, they are led by LJ Martin. He's a freshman, 6'2", 205, kind of a bigger guy. Name should sound familiar. He's a Texas Tech commit coming out of El Paso. He has run the ball 86 times for 372 yards, 4.0 yards per carry, and adds 4 touchdowns. They have other running backs on the roster, but just like Texas Tech, they don't really use anybody else. I mean, you've got Cameron Valdez, but it's even worse for these guys behind Martin. They've got Deion Smith, who's a senior. He's got 18 carries on the year for 41 yards. It's 1.7 yards per carry. And then Miles Davis, 14 carries, 65 yards. 10 of those 14 carries of his 14 carries on the season, 10 of them came last week versus TCU. So getting a little bit more run there. When they do throw the ball, they've got wide receiver Chase Roberts. Is a big sophomore, 6'4", 210. He's got 27 catches on the year for 420 yards. 15.5 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. Another receiver they'll be looking at, Darius Lassiter is another senior. He's a senior. Sorry, not another senior. He's a senior. 6'3", 205, 19 catches, 225 yards. So 12 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. And then tight end Isaac Rex, fantastic name. Junior, 6'6", 255, 19 catches, 275, and a touchdown. They have allowed, it feels like a lot, but maybe not. They've allowed 9 sacks on the season for a net of losing 67 yards. They have, 3 lost fumbles, thrown 4 interceptions, compared to Texas Tech losing 2 fumbles and throwing 9 interceptions themselves. So they don't turn the ball over as much as Texas Tech does.
Yeah, and those 4 interceptions, I think, were in the last 3 games.
So they take care of the ball, but they don't do much with it.
Right. They've had some issues lately. So, yeah, they had 2 interceptions. Well, Slovis had 2 interceptions against BYU. One of them was a tipped pass, but it was thrown behind his guy. And then let's see, I forgot where they had the other 2. I think they were, at least 3 of the 4 came in the last 3 games.
Yeah, they do. If they are able to put a drive together, they're pretty good at finishing those drives. They are 90% on converting red zone trips into points. They're 18 of 20 on the season. Tech defense is not much better, 88%. So that is a matchup to look out for. If BYU is able to get the ball into the red zone, they're pretty good at ending in points there. Only 14. Well, I say 14. 14 of those are touchdowns. Whereas Texas Tech defense is pretty good. They do allow 88% conversion on red zone trips into points, but only 56% of those are touchdowns.
And to give some perspective on that too, out of 20 red zone trips on the year, Texas Tech offense has had 31. So it's not like BYU's, even on a quote unquote down year, Texas Tech offense is still moving the ball into the red zone pretty effectively.
Yeah. They are throwing for 239 yards per game at 7.1 yards per attempt. Texas Tech is allowing teams to throw for 232 on 6.7 yards per attempt. So pretty comparable there. 60 BYU's offense runs the ball for 67.5 yards per game, 2.4 yards per carry. And if you do take out Keaton Slovis's sacks or his negative yardage there, that only bumps him up to 3.0 yards per carry. They are converting 30% of their third downs and 50% of their fourth down. So offensively, they just are not very good at extending drives. They're not a team that's going to put together extended drives on you. They score 28 points per game, where Texas Tech is allowing teams to rush for 147 yards per game at 3.9 yards per carry. They allow teams to convert 41% of third downs, and they're giving up 25 points per game. So I think as long as you're not giving up big plays, you're not tackling air, diving at people's feet, you should be able to slow down this offense. It really is LJ Martin. And if it has to go in the air, like those guys, I mean, the receivers don't scare me. The numbers from Chase Roberts, 15.5 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. That's nothing to sneeze at, but it's also like, if you're forcing Keaton Slovis in the air, completes only 57% of his passes, then you're doing well elsewhere.
I do like this matchup defensively. I feel good about Tech's ability to continue to stuff this run game that BYU has trouble establishing. And, Tech's, as much, attrition that they've had in certain positions, they've been pretty healthy in the secondary, and they've been pretty effective. So, yeah, their receivers are tall. I mean, every guy we listed was, 6'2" and taller, 6'3" and taller. So, I think there are going to be some good targets, and I saw some of the highlights. They can make some good moves after they catch the ball, but I just like this matchup. I feel like when defense is on the field, defense travels, as they always say. So that could really come in handy for Tech.
Yeah, hope so. When when Texas Tech has the ball, you slip down to the 27th best offense. You're facing the 63rd S&P Plus defense, a defense that is missing a lot of production. Like, they have been snake bit in the worst way by injuries. Linebacker Ben Bywater is going to be out for the season. Was their leading tackler the last 2 seasons, was a team captain. played in 4 games, but has had a shoulder injury and will be out, like I said, the rest of the year. We'll have shoulder surgery. Also, safety Tanner Wall is having surgery. Like their safety position just in general has just been hit bad. Yeah. I was going to let you talk about that if you wanted to, Michael.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. We had a question on our YouTube feed, but I threw it in the bottom of the notes there. No, that's kind of what I was getting at. Is it was on my mind thinking about Tech being fortunately healthy in the secondary and almost overall defensively. I know there have been some issues with the linebackers, but yeah, BYU is on their 4th or 5th guy at safety. So yeah, they've had 5 safeties miss multiple games due to injury. And you mentioned Ben Bywater. He was their leading tackler and everything. Really solid linebacker that's out for the year. Aspirations for the NFL. So this defense is hurting, and that kind of, no pun intended, sorry, that kind of to me feels like helps explain why that score was so lopsided in Fort Worth. I know TCU is a pretty stout team. They're a team that I should be a little bit more respectful of, but I do think that BYU's just really suffered a lot of injuries and that have thrust a lot of guys in on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. They are led in tackles currently by linebacker Max Tooley, 6'2", 225, 44 total tackles, 25 of those solos, got a sack. Second up is a linebacker, AJ V. I'm not even trying to pronounce his last name. 6'3", 235, 39 tackles, 15 solo, and then a safety. Even with all the other safety injuries, Ethan Slade, third on the team, 6 foot, 190, 33 tackles. They do have 7 sacks on the season, led by Tyler Batty, 6'5", 275. Guys got 3.5 of their 7, so he's got half of them, and they've forced and caught 8 interceptions so far. So pretty good little havoc creating defense. But if they're not turning you over, then they're letting you move up and down the field. They are allowing teams to pass for 248 yards, 6.9 yards per attempt, whereas Texas Tech is putting up 230 yards and 6.3 yards per attempt. They are allowing teams to run for 150 yards per game at 4.5 yards per carry, whereas Texas Tech is putting up 180 yards per game on 5 yards per carry. Their defense allows 42% conversion on third down. Texas Tech is converting 41%, but only giving up 26 points per game. Texas Tech is scoring 32. So, again, I like the matchup here. I think they're pretty bad at defending the run. And if you can just adopt the game plan you had in Waco and play it in Provo, then I feel pretty good about your opportunity here. The line has shifted. Well, I've seen it work, and I've seen it work well. But I've also seen a coaching staff not be committed to doing that. So I think you should win this game. Even on the road, your defense is better than their offense. Your offense is better than their defense. Even in the flawed state it is. But if you can just find a healthy dose of running backs carrying the ball, I don't want Jake Strong running the ball too much, then I think you should be able to keep BYU at arm's length and win this game maybe the score is closer than it would otherwise seem to be. Like if you're able to do what you did against Baylor, but the score is closer, it's just because you were just churning clock all night. So you opened up as a 2.5 point favorite. It's now 4.5 points in Texas Tech's favor. A pretty low over under at 52. I think I'll take Texas Tech here to win by like 10 or 11, which is a big road win, right? But I'm looking at something like, I guess to get to 11, like 28-17 or something.
Oh, wow. So you're still hitting the under?
I think so. I think it'll be a lower scoring game. I do think if you do what I know you're capable of doing, what we've all seen you as capable of doing this season, even, that you could win this game pretty handily, and maybe BYU scores late to close the gap a little bit, or maybe you just play keep away and you just run clock all night. I think it would be a lower scoring game, but what do I know? So give me Texas Tech to win and cover, and I'll say something like 28-17.
Well, I am going to pick the exact same score I did last week. 26-22. But I've got BYU winning. I just don't have faith in this offense. I know Texas Tech did win a road game this year, and that was going to be my get the lid off the basket cue to start picking them in road games, but I'm not there yet on consistency's sake. And this is not a way to bash Jake Strong or anything, but this is just a tall order to ask a true freshman to potentially start in his first road game, a brand new conference opponent, a rockin' stadium. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask for. So, and hopefully the OC will make adjustments to make that a little easier for him. But I don't have 100% faith in that either. So I do think Texas Tech will be able to limit their offense, but I'm afraid that some costly turnovers similar to last week will put BYU in favorable position. And as we talked about earlier, if they get in the red zone, they score, and they may not have to do that very often to beat Texas Tech. So I've got BYU 26-22. That would also be the under. I think our point total's the same, Spencer. I think we both wound up with, no, you got 45. I've got 48. And I think the over, I forgot what the line was last week. I swear it was 54.5 and the total was 55. So someone was really pissed if they put money on the under last week because it did not cash and it was so close. It's too bad. It's a shame. So yeah. I'm Downer. I'm Debbie Downer again because I picked Tech to lose in Baylor. Even after seeing the Houston win, and that blew up, and then I picked them to win at home against Kansas State, and that blew up, and so now I'm reverse jinxing it again. They'll go to Provo and just manhandle the Cougars. We'll see.
Well, we both picked this as a loss in the preseason.
In preseason, we did, yes. Yeah.
So 28-17 feels awfully strong right about now. No pun intended.
There it is.
All right, looking around the rest of the Big 12, Baylor at Cincinnati. Wow, that's just going to be terrible football to watch. UCF at Oklahoma, Oklahoma State at West Virginia, Texas at Houston, TCU at Kansas State. And Iowa State and Kansas are off this week. Any of those games intrigue you or give you any kind of interest?
It seems like it's always, not always, but the one I'm most interested in is the one that's going on during the same time as ours, because for obvious reasons, just playing Kansas State and having TCU come to Lubbock next Thursday, that one is really intriguing to me. One, because it's one of the closer lines, but with two teams that are playing some pretty good football right now. Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Yeah, West Virginia's favored by 3, and Cincinnati's favored by 2.5 against Baylor. But none of those teams are playing football I really want to sit down and watch right now. But I would sit down and watch TCU and Kansas State, absolutely, if Tech was not playing at the exact same time.
Yeah,
Dang
maybe
it, scheduling gods or whoever.
And I think if UCF was playing at full strength, that game would have been a little more interesting too.
True. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to see the new teams play, the legacy teams, or in this case, the SEC team. But man, I don't wish playing anyone. I mean, I don't wish playing in Norman at 11 a.m. on anyone, really. Even the Golden Knights. So sorry.
Except
Guys.
except the Sooners. You want them to play as many 11 a.m. games as they can.
Oh yeah, I love that. I absolutely love it. And it's not the Big Nooner either. It's on ABC.
Yep.
It's competing with the Big Nooner. So whatever that is, I don't know who they have.
Have we finally lost the shine, the sheen on Colorado?
Yes, I think so. I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed it while it lasted. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I'll still halfway follow them here and there, but man, to blow 29, what was it, 29-0 up on Stanford and lose? Jiminy Christmas. At home?
Yeah.
Wasn't it at home?
I think so.
In the stadium lit by candlelight, the worst lighting on TV. Unreal.
Right.
But yeah, I'm still gonna be like one of those. I'll check it out here and there, but yeah, it's not gonna be on. It's gonna we're gonna start seeing them on Pac-12 Network and FS2 and what all before the end of the season.
Yeah. All right, you want to talk about some basketball real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the preseason poll comes out where the coaches vote on the pecking order of how the season standings will end up at the end of the year. Know that the coaches aren't allowed to vote for themselves. So probably the only reason why I say that, no, they're not really the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons why Kansas is not unanimous up there. But Kansas picked to finish first. It took me a second to remember why this was not a surprise, but Houston was second. But it was 12 of the 14 votes for Kansas, 2 for Houston. But there's a bigger
Bill
gap.
Self and who else?
Yeah, I don't know. But there's a bigger gap between Kansas and Houston than there is between Houston and Texas. So Texas is 3. They tallied up these points. Houston had 153 points in this poll. Texas at 3 had 143, whereas there are 15 points separating Kansas and Houston. But in order, so it goes Kansas, Houston, Texas, Baylor, TCU, Kansas State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, BYU, UCF.
I get caught up into football season so much that even though we do this podcast every week and talk about the teams and have talked about Tech's basketball schedule and everything, there is still a part of me that just assumed once football season was over, we were done playing Texas and Oklahoma. Like, that's it.
No,
that's not the case. Because I was like, Texas, why are we, what? because I really did for a split second when you said Texas got third place votes. I'm thinking, why? What in the world are they doing on the Big 12? Oh, yeah, I'm an idiot. So I
And
couldn't keep
baseball
up
this
with
year
it.
too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I know. I mean, women's basketball too. The whole
Soccer.
shebang. They're going to be there. If we had a diving team, we'd be facing off against them in diving. Big swim fans, the Longhorns.
When they count up their national titles, you need to ask them how many of those are swimming and diving.
Oh yeah, and they'll know. You know,
That
it's
they're
like
like
asking. It's like being that jerk that asks a 14-year-old how many Nirvana songs they know because they're wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Go up to the next Longhorn fan. You see how many diving championships have you watched?
Also, would be interested to hear how many diving and swimming and diving programs are competing. So.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's like them and
So,
6 other schools.
When I heard this order first announced, I was shocked. Not shocked. That's too strong. I was surprised Texas Tech was as low as they were. Then I was like, well, you got to remember all the stuff that's going on with the roster and with McCaslin in his first year. So like, I wanted to be like, 8th feels low, but then I'm thinking Iowa State's been pretty good perennially the last few years. Kansas State, with the direction Jerome Tang, the momentum he was able to build in year one. TCU was the first one I was kind of like balking at, but like at that point, you're almost 40 points in this poll separating you and TCU. Like they're picked to finish 5th and you're 8th. So like they're not going to be below you. Well, I don't want TCU to be good, but I don't think they're going to be. They're in a much more solid and figured out space than Texas Tech. Texas Tech could certainly finish higher than 8th, but you got a lot of things to answer right now.
Yeah,
West Virginia feels awfully high at 9.
Right. And I think that for me, this transitional year, aspirationally, I would, at minimum, I would like to see Texas Tech make the top half, and that's about as predictory I want to get. I don't even know what the word is. I mean, I don't want to put a lot of pressure or put a lot of expectations or any of that going into this season. If Tech finishes in the top half of the Big 12, I don't know if I'd be happy about it because once we see how those dominoes fall, you know, if Tech ends on like a 1-7 stretch where they really could have, you know, climbed up and possibly made the tournament or whatever. But I just think I would take right now, without knowing how it got there, Texas Tech finish in the top half of the Big 12 and call it a quote unquote successful season. What do you say to that? Would you agree to that, or would you be like,
No, it makes sense. It does. And I guess I'm having a hard time just adjusting and like just realizing and trying to set expectations. Because you did change coaches this season. And I remember going into last season thinking like how poised you were to make a step forward and just how horribly wrong it went.
Sure,
right?
Yeah, that's still in the back of my mind too. Absolutely.
So, but then like I said, I turn around like if I look at the teams that should finish below Texas Tech, I'm like there really should be like a giant gap between Texas Tech and everybody else. But then I realized maybe Texas Tech isn't that giant gap below everybody else too, right? Like it does feel like the top half of this conference, Kansas, Houston, Texas, Baylor, TCU, Kansas State, and Iowa State are all pretty set in their situations, right? And then you get everybody else. Texas Tech, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, BYU, UCF. They're either brand new, they're not very good, or they're dealing with all kinds of turmoil and turnover, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is like if you can break into the top half and get it, like separate yourself from the troubled teams, because it feels like there's like the established and the ones that are figuring stuff out. You got stuff to figure out now to move out of that group, but it really does feel like there's a very defined top half, bottom half of this conference, and you don't want to be in the bottom half ever.
No,
but yeah, I'm interested to see how the team comes together and how it looks early in the season. Because I think there were even signs last year as the games were getting started. You're like, man, they're something's not right. We had all those rumors of what may have been happening off the court, practice or in personal lives. They were just like, that can't be true. And then it was like,
sure,
wow, surely.
Yeah, or injuries that weren't really being reported, or you didn't really understand how they happened, and if the injuries happened before or after commitments were made, or NIL deals were struck, and just all these different. No, surely not. Surely not.
Yeah,
it's going to be fine.
It's gonna be fine. It's basketball.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those like manage expectations. Well, I guess you can say that for everything, every sport for Texas Tech. You need to manage expectations.
From here, it's possible. Open parentheses, manage your expectations. Close parentheses.
The other thing I already mentioned it, Michael. The Kansas Jayhawks basketball program heard some finality to their investigation. No further action will be taken against them. Surprised? No, not at all.
I don't even know what they were investigating them for. I never really looked into it because I knew it didn't matter, and it wasn't going to matter. I thought it's fine, whatever it is. Nothing will come of it.
No. Did you know that they picked up Arterio Morris in the transfer portal this year?
That I did not know.
Famed girlfriend beater from Texas. You know what happened soon after he arrived in Kansas, Michael?
No.
He was accused of assaulting another woman. It's fantastic news for them.
Jeez.
Hate that for the victim.
Absolutely.
Because that seems like a no-brainer, like red flags. We should figure this out.
It seems like a very avoidable circumstance.
Sorry, I have to keep adjusting. This chair is not very comfortable, and I have not much to sit on.
You're doing great.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Let's get to questions. We have one, and then wrap this up with what we learned. So going back to the YouTube comment section, Alan Corbin, he and I had a little bit of a exchange this morning, and a Gambling Gaucho's thread about famous musical artists and songs written about Utah. But anyways, he asks, is Tech making a bowl? I have my doubts. Michael, if you were to look at the rest of the schedule, rest of the football season, does Texas Tech make it to 6 wins?
I've got to go back up to our percentage, and if they don't this week, I say no. If they don't win this week, which I've already said I don't think they will, but I don't think they will do it. I mean, there's a chance that a fully healthy Texas Tech plays a great game in Lawrence. I mean, that's possible because that's one of your last winnable games, quote unquote, looking at the numbers and everything, but you do get TCU at home. I'm walking it all back. I think Tech really does have a chance. They should beat Central Florida at home. They can beat Kansas on the road. They are capable of doing that. They can beat TCU at home, and they could beat BYU on the road. But I don't think that I don't really have any hopes in Austin right now. So I'm going to say yes. Tech will get 3 more.
If they don't make a bowl game, do you think there are staff changes?
I don't know. I think, well, obviously not McGuire. I think he's. I don't know. There are some people that just get really mad and say stuff that probably do want to get rid of him, but I don't think there's very many. And I think he's really loyal though, so I'm not sure there would be. Obviously, the elephant in the room would be offensive coordinator. Could possibly be a change that a lot of people would clamor for, but maybe not. Maybe not after this stretch. Like last year, I think some folks got frustrated with him, but then Tech went 8-5, and everybody kind of shut up all summer. So I don't know. I don't know what'll happen at the end, but yeah, if you do miss a bowl game, you could still point to injuries and stuff, though.
Yeah, you could say you had to play 3 quarterbacks and maybe a wide receiver.
That was the Kingsbury's last few years were kind of propped up a little bit by that, and I was propping him up some myself. But if Tech had a healthy field goal kicker in like 2017 or whatever that was, they probably would have done okay. But there's just all these different things that you can kind of say to yourself and talk yourself into at this point. But I don't know. I bet some coaches leave just because that's the nature of the business, and I don't know if it would be for any sort of firing or any sort of animosity. But I just wouldn't be surprised if somebody ended up somewhere else. But man, I don't know. I have a tough time thinking that Joey McGuire would fire anybody after this year. After 2 years in, I think he's too loyal to do it.
That has its own set of issues with me.
It can. Still remains to be seen. But
I mean, we're not saying that he won't fire anybody. We haven't seen it happen yet, so
yeah,
don't know how that will work out.
And to be clear, I'm not saying he should. I don't want to say that.
No, the season's not over yet.
Yeah, I mean it's October 17th. I'm not saying that at all. But yeah, you were asking me the end of the year. So that's what I was trying to answer.
So I right now don't think you make a bowl game. I think you are most likely to finish. Well,
you're gonna go 5-7 or 4-8?
I think you can go 5-7.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, obviously you can go 8-4.
Such a lofty goal. You can go 5-7. Oh yeah, sign me up, brother.
I think we're looking at 4-8 as a more likely scenario.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think like 3-9 is pretty unlikely. Like I don't think you lose every game.
Agree.
Every remaining game. I don't know if I see 3 more on the schedule. Which is strange because like you weren't really picked or predicting to win the game against Kansas State. But I think the way you lost it, you're like, that opened up so many more questions that Kansas can eat your lunch.
Yes.
The TCU game, like a huge swing following this weekend. You went from 63% to 50%. You actually gained in percentage points your confidence against BYU this weekend. But I look at it and I look at UCF at home. I think you got a great shot to win that game. I think you should beat BYU this weekend. I have my doubts. And then everybody else is like, it's going to be like an uphill battle, upset type of performance to beat Kansas on the road, TCU, or Texas. So that's where I'm at. All right. Michael, let's wrap this up and get to what we learned. What do you say?
Okay.
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't know either.
I don't know either. Why don't you go first, because you've got two on this list.
Yeah, I've got two teed up real quick. So first, I'll go with cooked up a couple more pork tendies on the Weber kettle this weekend, and went with a dry brine instead of a marinade. I did a marinade on the last two, and brother, they came out pretty good. I do think the dry brine, it tasted better, fresh off the grill. And when you reheated it, it was a little bit drier than I would have liked. So probably a marinade would have kicked that. But yeah, I basically just I have this I have this rub called Sweet Money that I put on one of them, and then I did good old Montreal steak seasoning on the other, because I'm still trying to work through that giant thing we bought like 2 years ago. And
it's hard to beat, man.
It was great. They were both really good, and I think I actually liked the Sweet Money better. And I've had that seasoning for a couple of years, but I've been really sparing on when I've used it, just because I don't know why, but man, I should put that on some ribs. I should, it's really great on pork of any sort. I might do maybe one of the next times I do a pork butt, I might put that on there. It's got like crystallized honey. Is the sweetness in it. I don't think it has actually sugar or brown sugar, so it's got a little bit different sweet to it, and it's a lot more savory than I thought, because the seasoning tastes really sweet when you just try it on its own, but then into the meat it really kind of brings out a lot more of the garlic and the other spices they have in it. So the other thing I learned, though.
Well, I've got two things too, so hold on.
You go. Okay, all right. We'll alternate.
I didn't.
You go.
Also food related. We went to the corn maze. We family split a bag of the kettle corn, Michael, and I don't know who I've told this to. So if I've already said it here, buckle up, because here we go again. It was so dang good. I know I texted you about it. Like, we were in the maze. I was like, this stuff is like perfectly sweet and salty.
Yes.
I didn't think I liked kettle corn before, but I just, like, it was in my mind. Like, I wanted to try it. It was like just part of the experience of being at the maze. I was like, we're just going to do it. And like, me and Hayden could not stay out of it. Of course, Hayden's 3. He was in the wagon. So Samantha was pulling the wagon of the littles. So the baby was in like little assisted seating thing in the wagon. Hayden sat in there with her. I was the caboose of our little train here. I was following up because Grayson wanted to have the map and the questions and lead us through with the flashlight and all that kind of stuff. We're like, great, do it. I'm just gonna hang back. I'm just gonna follow you guys. Let me eat some of this popcorn. Dude, that kettle corn was so dang good. When I decided like I probably had too much, I let Hayden hold the bag, and then he was going hard after it. I was like, slow down, brother. There's 4 of us here that need to eat on this thing. Samantha didn't not like it, but still wasn't like a big fan of kettle corn. But we got home and realized we had bought this big box of snacks from HEB a while ago, and they're called popcorners.
Oh,
I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
So it was like a variety box, and we ate the other ones just fine, and we left all of the kettle corn bags. And I was like, you know what? I tried kettle corn this weekend. I really liked it. I opened this bag. I was like, this isn't too bad.
No.
I may be into kettle corn now.
There you go.
But like it would have been better if it was like fresh or even like just warmed up slightly. Which I don't know how you would do that, but it was still really, really good. So I may be a kettle corn man now.
Yeah, my wife converted me because I forgot the first time I remember us getting it. That Ranching Heritage Center, they do the Christmas thing where, you know, they have Christmas scenes in the houses and stuff they have out there and music playing and different things. And we went there while we were dating, and they had a guy making fresh kettle corn right there.
Mm.
And it smelled really good. But I don't even think I knew it was sweet. I didn't know anything about it, but she had to have some. And so she went and got some. And then, yeah, I think I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah. You gotta realize that kettle corn is sweet. I think that's what threw me off before. It's like I wasn't expecting to be sweet. I was like, oh, what is this? But if you know it's sweet and salty, then you're in for a treat, brother.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, you have something else.
Yes. Speaking of my wife, she had an Amazon buy recently that I was very skeptical of, but she was into it. She's going to do it. It's a sandwich maker, specifically a breakfast sandwich maker, and it's made by Hamilton, and it's this little thing that basically you kind of layer how it cooks it and how it warms everything. So the bottom layer is your English muffin. Let's just use that. And then on top of your English muffin, you put your meat, whatever it is, a cooked meat. You can't put like raw sausage on there. That's not going to work. So Canadian bacon and cheese. You could put cheese there too if you want. Okay. So then the second layer above that, you can crack a raw egg on it. And you poke a little hole in the yolk so it doesn't like overflow or do something crazy. And then you just sit the top of your English muffin on that egg gently. And then you close the lid down and you let that puppy go for like 4 minutes. And then you've got a fully formed breakfast sandwich with a fresh egg on it. And it's fantastic. I was so skeptical. I was a believer instantly. It didn't take very long. She's been really excited about this thing because she's been wanting to have, a good breakfast sandwich, and she can't stand heating those up in the microwave, heating up bread in the microwave and everything. And I get that.
Yeah, it's all soggy and weird.
Yeah, it's just, and it's, it's like 700-degree bread somehow, and then the sausage is still cold in the middle, so none of it makes sense. But it's really versatile because you could use biscuits, you could use like dinner rolls, you could use cooked bacon. I forgot some other things that she thought of and looked up. So, like those mini Eggos or something. There's other different things you could do to kind of build your own sandwich. But yeah, I wasn't openly questioning it when she ordered it, but the whole time I was in the back of my mind like, oh yeah, this is really going to work. And then yeah, now I'm the one that looks like a moron because I can't wait to use it in the morning.
So had you brought this up before trying it, I'd be like, yeah, because we have one and we had not had success with it.
You haven't?
No. Like, I don't know if like the tolerances are off or maybe we got a knockoff, but like we tried to crack a fresh egg into it and it just went everywhere.
Oh no.
So it was like, this thing sucks. Can't even cook an egg in here like it's supposed to. So it may just be our model.
Did you poke the yolk? Because that was the key. That was what they said. If you don't poke the yolk, then it'll bubble up and like go over where it cooks the egg. That's crazy that you have one of these. I love it. I had no idea.
Maybe we tried to like quick scramble or something. I don't know. I couldn't get it to work. We still have it, I think. I don't think we gave it away. We tried it one night or once and was like, couldn't figure it out. Like, we're not messing with that again.
Oh, that's crazy. She just went to Costco today and loaded up on English muffins. Man, we're set. We got like a huge pack of Canadian bacon. We're gonna have us a good set of breakfast Sammys all the rest of this week and next, and who knows.
We had good breakfast sandwiches a while ago. Samantha, for whatever reason, got in her mind that she wanted to try hollandaise sauce. So like we got English muffins, Canadian bacon, and she learned how to make a hollandaise sauce. We made those breakfast sandwiches, and they were freaking fantastic. But I may have to try it again.
Yeah,
sandwich
you might pull it back out, see what you got.
All right, so the last thing I have, unrelated to football and food and just sports in general, we had some big news happen at work. Like everybody's physically healthy, they're fine, but like it just reminded me like you're not ever guaranteed tomorrow. And like I said, like nobody's hurt, nobody died. But there's a good, I would consider him like a work friend. So not a friend that I would like text or hang out with outside of work. But a work friend. He lost his job this week, or what we announced that he was losing his job. And just kind of like it came out of nowhere. And like he's from the area, like he's worked for our organization for like he came back to the hospital a little bit after I did. But he had worked for us before, and then went to work for Baylor. Anyways, in administration. So like for whatever reason, I always just assumed like administration were like they're pretty set and stable in their positions, but so like I don't know, just be mindful that like things can turn on you in an instant, and it's just it's hard, man. Because he's a like I don't want to make it sound like a big pity party, right? Like he's a CEO. He's well compensated, but he's the only provider for his family. He's got 3 young kids. They have to figure out like what to do now, because it's not like there are a lot of hospital opportunities to go to work out here in town. Don't even know like if he'll want to work in healthcare. I don't know. It's tough. It's gonna be hard to say goodbye to a friend. And it wasn't his decision to leave, so just had me thinking about just how quickly and fluid all of our situations are.
Oh, sure. Even when you think everything's set, something shows up unexpectedly and proves otherwise.
Yeah, because you think about somebody progressing through, the ranks and attaining, a position or title as a CEO. You're like, you kind of feel like, hey, I've made it. Like I've been successful, and then to have that, taken away, it's like I can't speak for like how much this plays into like his personality, right? Like how much of him it was to be a hospital executive, but it's not nothing, right?
Oh, sure.
Still a job that he's poured his heart into for 15 plus years. So it's tough, man. Sorry to bring everybody down. But that's what I've been thinking about. That's what I learned.
Hey, we've been talking about tech football this whole time. Most everybody's already there.
Yeah, I guess that's true. All right. That'll do it for us in 23 Personnel Podcast. Hope to get you ready for the game this weekend in Proville. If you're going, get a Cougar Tail. Let us know how it is. Ship extras back to us. We'll give you our address. We'll even pay for it. Michael and I are split on how we think the game will go, but I think it's there. I think it's possible. For Michael, I'm Spencer. We'll catch you guys on Saturday.
Thank you for listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast. Help us out by subscribing, rating the show, and leaving a review. Follow us on Twitter at 23personnel, Spencer at PuntSuck, and Michael at Michael_LBK. Be sure to catch the next episode. And until then, guns up and let the tortillas fly.